hurt my mom? She's not waking up.
Tell me what happened. You're safe now.
Minneapolis, before dawn. The blizzard turns KindredNet's lobby to white noise as Adrian Cole, a calm CEO in a navy scarf, swipes in. A soaked girl steps from the drift, clutching a dented robot keychain. "They hurt my mom. She won't wake up." He kneels, wraps his scarf around her, taps a silent alert. Roads close, lights flicker. Can he reach her in time? Or will the storm swallow their signal? Before dawn, the city sounded like an old radio between stations. Wind hissed against concrete, snow scraped the loading ramp in long, rasping breaths, and the generator thumped steady under KindredNet's private parking level. Adrian Cole stepped from the elevator alone, breath fogging in small, even pulses. Navy scarf at his collar, a slim, reflective stripe catching the weak emergency lights. He lifted his badge to the turnstile. "Morning, Mr. Cole," the night guard said, voice tinny over the glass. He looked tired, fleece zipped to his chin. "Roads are bad. You sure you want—" Adrian glanced at the weather strip that rattled under the door. "We don't shut off because the sky does," he said, gentle, not unkind. The scanner chirped. The gate released. Then he saw her. A little figure detached from the shadow of a concrete pillar, hair plastered to her cheeks, coat soaked to the wrists. 8, maybe. She held up a dented robot keychain like it was an ID badge, a knight's crest, a promise. The metal flickered in the emergency light. She didn't make it to the glass before she spoke. She didn't shout. It came out flat and small like air leaking from a tire. "They hurt my mom," she said. "Please, she's not waking up." The guard froze, eyes cutting to Adrian. Policy lived in his glance. "This is a secure floor. It's pre-dawn. Who let her down here? Do we call this in and wait?" Adrian moved, not fast, just deliberately, as if the floor were thin ice. He met the girl at the threshold where wind needled through, knelt until her eyes were level with his. "What's your name?" he asked, calm as a hallway at night. "Ivy." Her lips were bluish, teeth clicking once, twice. She didn't look away. "Hi, Ivy. I'm Adrian." He unwound his scarf, the navy one with the reflective stripe, and settled it around her shoulders. He didn't touch her hair, didn't pull her close. He let the fabric be the thing that touched. "It's warm. You can keep it until I find you a better one." "I need you to come," she said. "Mom's on the mattress." I shook her. "She won't." Behind the glass, the guard picked up the phone. His hand hovered over the keypad. "Do I call 911 or in-house first?" he asked no one in particular. "In-house," Adrian said without turning. "Then 911. He lifted his wrist as if scratching under his cuff and pressed a tile on his watch. No beep, no flash. Security would receive the code. Medical, too. He let his hand fall again. "Ivy," he said, voice low. "Where do you live?" "South Phillips. We got power, then it stopped. I kept the phone warm in my sock. It died anyway." She tightened her fist around the little robot. A scuff marred one eye. "This keeps signals. It's dumb, but it works if you believe it." "It looks tough," he said, "like it's been through a lot and still does its job." She blinked at that. Wind rattled the door again. Somewhere far up the ramp, a plow clanged and spun, then went quiet. The generator coughed and steadied. "We'll help your mom," Adrian said. "Right now. But I'm going to be honest with you the whole time." He glanced back. "Medical cart to the lobby," he told the guard. "Security to clear the path from P2 to the conference infirmary. And call 911 with a suspected head injury. Adult female, semi-conscious, unknown downtime. Tell them we'll stabilize." The guard recovered, nodding into the handset. "On it. Infirmary is preheated. Cart in 2. Adrian looked to Ivy again. "When did you leave your apartment?" She swallowed. I don't. No. The lights blinked. Neighbor hit the wall. I waited. Then I ran. I know this building. The letters are bright. Mom wanted a job here. She said smart people live here. Adrian's mouth lifted a fraction. Not a smile, more like agreement. Some do. Some just try. He shrugged off his overcoat, leaving the scarf where it was, and gestured to the turnstile. Let's get you warm while we call an ambulance for your mom. The guardian hesitated once more. Sir, she's not on the list. Add her, Adrian said. Visitor, medical. The gate clicked open. Ivy stepped through like she was crossing a river on a narrow board. She kept the robot keychain up between them, as if it could block bad weather and worse luck. He walked beside her, matching his pace to her small steps. You believe in signals? He asked, more to keep her breathing steady than for an answer. I believe in people who answer, she said. He let that settle. It rang true, the kind of sentence that resets a life. They reached the elevator as the medical cart rounded the corner, silver blanket folded, a small heater whining. Adrian held out a hand toward the warmth, not to touch Ivy, but so she could see exactly where it was going. This part is simple, he said. Blanket, cocoa, questions. Then we go to your mom. Ivy looked at the door, at the heater, at the scarf around her neck. Okay, she whispered, but please, don't promise if you can't. I won't, he said. I never do. As the elevator doors closed, the wind howled down the ramp, trying to pull the sound through with them. The light above the panel glowed steady as a heartbeat. Somewhere above their heads, the city crackled in the storm, searching for a path. The infirmary sat behind frosted glass, usually used for workplace scrapes or fainting interns, but tonight it felt like a quiet triage bay. Heat lamps cast soft halos on metal counters. Ivy perched on the cot, wrapped in a silver blanket that crinkled every time she breathed. Her cheeks were flushed now, a good sign. The dented robot keychain rested in her palm like a tiny sentinel. Adrian leaned against the counter across from her, his jacket folded neatly beside him. The hum of servers upstairs vibrated faintly through the walls. You said your mom's phone died last night, he said. Did you try to call anyone else? Ivy nodded. The neighbor, Mrs. Calder. She banged on the wall and yelled at him to stop. Then she turned up the TV. I thought maybe she went to sleep. Do you remember hearing a crash? A lamp? Ivy's voice wavered. And something that broke. Then nothing. Just her breathing. It sounded funny. Adrian looked toward the nurse who'd just entered. KindredNet's night medic, Nadia, a former EMT who moved like calm water. She took Ivy's temperature, then flashed Adrian a silent, okay. He nodded, turning back to the girl. You did the right thing coming here. It's not easy to leave when someone you love is hurt. She told me to run if he got loud. Ivy looked down. He was loud. Adrian's jaw tightened a brief flicker before he steadied himself. Do you know his name? Darren, she said, the syllables sour. He works at the bar on Lyndale. Mom says he gets jealous of people with real jobs. Nadia finished her notes. She's stable, just shock and cold, she said quietly. Adrian nodded. Ivy, we're going to call the police so they can get to your mom, okay? They'll take her to a hospital where she'll be safe. Will they arrest him? If they find him, and if what happened is what it sounds like, yes. She clutched the keychain tighter. He says police only help people with money. Then tonight he's wrong. He turned toward the wall display, KindredNet's internal risk system still active on a corner monitor. A city map glowed faint orange speckled with data points, power flickers, traffic stalls, noise complaints. Adrian's operations lead, Ben, appeared on screen from his remote office, face tired but alert. Adrian, Ben said, got your signal. City network shows 3 flagged incidents around South Phillips in the last hour. Domestic disturbance noises, power line feedback, prior call-offs, coordinates triangulate near a walk-up on 14th Avenue. Adrian's gaze sharpened. Can you overlay the heat map? Done. The highest anomalies within a 3-block radius of that address you texted me. Police dispatch is overloaded. 30-minute delay minimum. Ivy's eyes darted between them. You can see that from here? We monitor public safety data, Adrian said gently. It helps us predict where help's needed faster. So you knew we were in trouble? He hesitated. Not exactly. But now that I do, I'm not ignoring it. He tapped the screen, sending Ben's coordinates to 911 with a digital note. Possible domestic injury. Female adult. Child located safe at KindredNet HQ. Ben exhaled. Already sent. They're queuing it for the next available unit. Adrian glanced toward the small kitchenette. Nadia, can we get her some cocoa? On it. While she stirred the packet into steaming water, Ivy studied the CEO like she was trying to decide if he was real. You don't look scared, she said finally. He smiled faintly. I learned to fix systems by staying calm when they break. What if people break? Then you hold the pieces steady until someone stronger helps. The cocoa arrived. Ivy wrapped both hands around the cup. You're not gonna promise, right? You said you don't. He nodded. Only that we'll do everything we can. And right now, that's making sure they reach your mom. Nadia's phone buzzed. A city alert. Adrian, police confirm backlog. They're rerouting emergency calls through auxiliary units, but roads are a mess. Ambulances stuck on I-94. He processed that quietly, tapping his fingers once against the counter. He could delegate, stay warm, let protocol play out. But the flicker in Ivy's eyes, hope fighting fear, held him there. Ben, he said, pull the SUV roster. Get me 2 drivers and 1 medic tech. I'll go with them. Adrian, you don't need to. Yes, I do. His tone left no air for argument. He crouched beside Ivy again. We'll find your mom. I'll be right there, okay? She blinked at him. Why are you helping us? Because someone once helped me, he said simply. The medic returned with a portable heater, setting it near her feet. Keep warm till we get back, Adrian said, standing. This building safe? Ivy nodded, eyes wide. Can I keep your scarf? He paused, then smiled. You already are. As he left the infirmary, the hallway lights flickered once, generator load balancing. He caught his reflection in the glass door, scarfless, serious, jaw set. Behind him, the girl sipped cocoa beside her dented robot. Above them, the storm deepened, carving the city into islands of light and static. Adrian walked faster, already calling Ellen Rourke to prepare what he knew would come next. Questions, paperwork, and risk. But there were some signals, he thought, that you didn't ignore just because they came through the noise. By the time Adrian reached the garage, the wind was howling hard enough to rattle the steel doors. Snow streaked past the security lights in fast, sideways ribbons, erasing the skyline above Minneapolis. He buttoned his coat, thumbed open the key fob, and watched the headlights of 3 KindredNet SUVs blink awake in sequence like they were taking orders. Ben's voice crackled over the intercom. Sir, the city just declared a snow emergency. Streets near Phillips are nearly impassable. If you're going, go slow and keep in radio range. I know the drill, Adrian said, slipping into the lead car. Send me the grid coordinates. He tapped the screen on the dash as data pulsed through. Domestic risk cluster. Priority flag. 14th Ave South. He exhaled once, steady and quiet, before glancing at the medic tech beside him. Her name tag read Lena, EMT contractor. She had sharp eyes and calm hands. You ever done this kind of run before? He asked. Not with my boss sitting shotgun, she said dryly. But I've done worse. Tornado shelters, highway rollovers. This'll just be colder. He allowed a faint smile. Fair enough. The convoy eased out, tires crunching through the powder, engines low and steady. Wind slashed across the hood like thrown salt. On the radio, emergency chatter flickered. Spun cars, blocked intersections, city trucks out of sand. Every few minutes, Adrian relayed updates to KindredNet's ops center, keeping tone and volume even, as if calm itself could part the snow. He checked his watch again. ETA, 22 minutes if we don't get stuck, the driver said, but the plows are all jammed up by Hiawatha. Adrian leaned forward, eyes narrowing at the road that looked more like a frozen river than asphalt. Take 28th across and cut down. There's a slope near the bridge that stays clear longer. You sure? Trust me, he said. I mapped that grid. The driver nodded, adjusted course. The wheels slid once, caught traction again. The city blurred past. Dark shapes of houses half buried, storefronts shuttered, one neon sign flickering, open like defiance. Inside the warmth of the car, Adrian's mind drifted back to the girl's voice. Please, she's not waking up. He gripped his knee lightly, grounding himself. He'd built a company to detect risk patterns, to predict human failure before it happened. But nothing in his code prepared him for an 8-year-old appearing out of a blizzard, holding the weight of a mother's life in her small hands. He reached for his phone, thumb hovering over Ellen Rourke's contact. When she answered, her tone was brisk and alert. You're in motion, I assume. I am, he said. We have a possible domestic assault, child witness. I authorized a convoy. If this goes how I think, we'll need emergency caregiver clearance. Ellen sighed. That means social services, background scan, temporary placement paperwork. You'll want to be ready with home safety proof. Should I contact Patel? Yes, and Officer Hoyt. Let them know we'll have a medical intervention before the police arrive. Understood, she paused. You realize if the media catches this, they will, Adrian cut in. But that's tomorrow's problem. Outside, visibility shrank to almost nothing. The headlights reflected off walls of snow. He could feel the tires slipping again, and he steadied his breath as if his calm could transfer through steel and rubber. The medic tightened her harness, eyes on the road. Most bosses would have waited it out, she said softly. Most bosses don't build systems to prevent silence, he replied, and silence is what gets people killed. The words sat heavy between them. For a few minutes, only the rumble of the engine filled the space. Then his phone buzzed with a text from Ben. Dispatch delay confirmed. Nearest police ETA, 38 minutes. Ambulance rerouted. He exhaled. All right, he murmured. Then we keep going. The GPS pinged. They turned down 14th Avenue. Dim, narrow, lined with old brick walk-ups whose windows glowed faint amber behind frosted glass. One streetlight flickered at the corner, its pole leaning against the wind. That one, Adrian said, pointing. 4th door on the right, south side. The SUV crawled to a stop. The team stepped into knee-deep snow, heads bowed, breath clouding white. Adrian led, his scarf gone, collar high, hair peppered with flakes. He climbed the stairs 2 at a time, stopping at the top to listen. No sound, no shouting, just the hollow electric hum of half-dead wiring. He glanced back at the medic. Bring the kid, he said, and stay behind me. When he reached the door, he didn't knock. He pressed his ear against it, heard the faint whimper of wind through broken glass, the distant groan of a radiator. Then he tried the handle. It turned. The air that hit him was stale, heatless, sharp with the scent of spilled medicine. Shadows flickered across the room from the streetlight outside. On the floor, he saw a toppled lamp, an empty bottle, and a mattress dragged close to the wall. On it, a woman lay curled, pale under a thin blanket, lips parted but breathing shallow. Found her, Adrian said quietly, signaling the medic forward. She's alive. He dropped to one knee beside her, checked pulse, faint but steady. The medic set the oxygen mask, took vitals. Adrian pulled his phone, switched to speaker. 911, he said. Female, mid-20s, semi-conscious, visible trauma, possible concussion. Scene secure. The operator's voice came through. Help is en route, sir. Stay with her. I'm not going anywhere, he said. He turned his head toward the hallway where cold air leaked through the doorway, and for a moment he pictured Ivy's small hands gripping the robot keychain, waiting for this moment to mean something. He looked back at the woman, Rosa, and said softly, almost to himself, "We're keeping your pulse steady. Your daughter's safe. You're not alone tonight." Outside, snow buried their footprints faster than they could melt. The stairwell lights buzzed weakly overhead, flickering like nerves. Every few seconds, one bulb dimmed, then flared, throwing broken shadows across the peeling wallpaper. The air smelled of cold iron and cigarettes. Adrian pressed his shoulder against the doorframe, watching the medic work. "BP's low but rising," Lena said, kneeling beside the woman on the mattress. "Bruising along the temple and ribs. She's dehydrated, maybe concussed. No bleeding I can see." Rosa Martinez. He remembered Ivy saying the name softly, like a wish she wasn't sure would still come true. Adrian crouched, staying out of the medic's way. Rosa's eyelids fluttered, a faint sound escaping her lips, something between a sigh and a cry. Her dark hair was matted, a dried streak of blood at the temple. The blanket covering her was thin, barely clinging to any heat. He spoke quietly, more for the girl who wasn't there than for the woman before him. "Your daughter made it through the storm. She's safe. She asked for help, and she was right to." The medic met his eyes. "We'll need transport within the hour. She's stable for now, but if she's taken a hit to the head—" Adrian nodded. "Already called. 911's en route." The dispatcher's voice crackled through his phone on speaker. "Sir, paramedics are delayed by snow gridlock. Estimated arrival, 25 minutes. Please keep the patient warm and conscious if possible." He glanced around the room. The space told a story without words. Fast food wrappers on the counter, a tipped-over laundry basket, a half-finished drawing of a robot on the fridge. The colors were bright, crayons pressed hard into paper. He stared at the signature at the bottom. Ivy, age, 8. He folded the drawing once, then set it gently on the nightstand beside Rosa. "Your daughter's brave," he murmured. The medic looked up. "You have kids." "Sir?" "No." He adjusted the blanket over Rosa's shoulder. "But I remember what fear sounds like." Outside the window, a neighbor's voice carried through the thin walls, muted but clear enough to hear. "He left about an hour ago," the woman called from her doorway, voice trembling. "The guy who did this. Darren. I didn't open my door, but I heard him slam down the stairs." Adrian called back, keeping his tone level. "You did the right thing. The police are coming." "Tell them he's got a temper," she added, voice cracking. "He's come back before." "I will," he said. Lena repositioned Rosa slightly, tucking a pillow under her shoulder. The woman's breathing steadied. "She's coming around." Adrian leaned closer. "Rosa, it's Adrian Cole. You're safe now. Your daughter's fine." Rosa's eyelids twitched, and a whisper slipped through. "Ivy?" "She's at my office. Warm, safe, waiting for you." Her lips parted. "Did she walk?" "She did," Adrian said softly. "In the storm. She found the only door with a light still on." Rosa's face pinched in disbelief, then pain. "He—" Her breath hitched. "He was yelling. Said the power company hates us. Said I'm nothing. Then—" "I don't remember." "Don't force it," Lena told her. "Just breathe. We'll get you to the hospital soon." Adrian stayed crouched, keeping his tone measured. "He won't come near you tonight. I've already informed the police." He meant it like a fact, not a comfort. The radio, clipped to the medic's belt, buzzed. "Dispatch here. Snowplow escort leaving Hiawatha. Ambulance ETA now 18 minutes. Lena exhaled. "Good. She'll make it." Adrian looked around once more, noting details automatically. Door splintered near the latch, heater sputtering, no sign of weapons. His mind catalogued, assessed, stabilized. Control the variables, he reminded himself, the way he always did in crisis meetings. Only this wasn't data. This was a person. He glanced toward the floor, where a cracked phone charger lay half buried under a towel. The device was unplugged. The small human details cut deeper than any headline could. When he rose, he kept his voice steady for dispatch. "Paramedics, do not send the siren until 2 blocks out. Child witness is nearby. Avoid panic." "Copy that," came the reply. Rosa stirred again, eyes blinking open halfway. "Who are you?" "Just someone who listened," Adrian said. Her gaze flicked toward his watch, catching the faint green glow of the company logo. "You're from the building," she murmured. "Yes." "Why would you—" "Because your daughter asked." She didn't answer, only blinked slow, tears mixing with exhaustion. He turned toward the medic. "When she's loaded up, tell me which hospital. I'll coordinate intake." "Understood." He tapped his earpiece to connect with Ellen. "I need hospital intake at Hennepin Healthcare, domestic assault case, early 30s female, minor child in protective holding." Ellen's voice came crisp. "On it. I'll inform the social worker rotation. Do you have name confirmation?" "Yes, Rosa Martinez." "Understood. And the child's status?" "Stable. Under Kindred Net Protection." Ellen paused. "You realize this might cross into temporary custody?" "Adrian." "I know," he said quietly. "Prepare the paperwork." He ended the call and watched as the medic covered Rosa with a thermal blanket. The faint rhythm of her breathing deepened. From the hall, another door creaked open. A thin man peeked out, eyes wide. "You the cops?" "No," Adrian said, "but help's coming." The man nodded, retreating. The stairwell fell quiet again except for the low hum of the oxygen tank. Adrian stayed there, kneeling on the cold linoleum until the paramedics arrived. He didn't look heroic, just steady, shoulders squared against the chill. When they lifted Rosa onto the stretcher, her hand brushed his wrist faintly, almost by instinct. He squeezed back once. "You're safe now. I promise your daughter will see you soon." As they carried her down, Adrian stayed behind for a moment, scanning the apartment one last time. The broken lamp, the drawing, the faint smell of cocoa on his sleeve from the girl upstairs. He whispered, mostly to himself, "We're keeping your mom warm. Pulse is there." Outside, sirens wailed faintly in the distance, swallowed fast by the wind. Fluorescent light flattened everything. Faces, hope, even time itself. The ambulance doors swung open, releasing a burst of frigid air as Rosa was wheeled into the Hennepin Healthcare ER. Nurses converged instantly, their voices brisk but kind, rhythm practiced. "Female, 28, found semi-conscious, head trauma, dehydration, possible concussion," the medic reported. Adrian followed at a respectful distance, coat dusted with snow, tie loosened from hours without pause. He'd seen triage rooms before, data collection missions, safety audits, but never through the lens of a life he'd personally carried here. Rosa moaned softly as a nurse adjusted her IV line. Another cut away her sleeve with quick precision, exposing the bruising along her arm. "We've got her," the nurse said. "Family?" Adrian hesitated, then answered plainly. "Her daughter's with me. 8 years old." The nurse gave a quick, understanding nod. "Social worker's already been paged. She'll brief you when she gets here." As Rosa was rolled behind a curtain, Adrian stepped aside to a bench near the window. Snow whirled outside like static, pressing white against the glass. He checked his phone. One missed call from Ellen Rourke. He dialed back. Her voice came sharp, clear. "You're at Hennepin?" "Yes, they've admitted her." "She's stable." "And the child?" "Infirmary at KindredNet. Fed, safe." "Good. I'm contacting Child Protective Services. Minnesota law allows temporary caregiver status in emergencies, but you'll need social services approval and a background check. I'll prep the forms. You're sure you want to be that person, Adrian?" He looked at his reflection in the glass, eyes tired but steady. "If not me, then who?" Ellen sighed. "Then we'll do this by the book. I'll loop in Mara Patel. She's reliable." "Thank you," he said softly and hung up. Minutes later, a new voice broke the quiet. "Mr. Cole?" He turned to see a police officer, Lena Hoyt, tall, steady, snow still melting on her shoulders. Her badge gleamed under the harsh light. "Officer Hoyt, Minneapolis PD. You reported the incident?" "Yes," Adrian said, standing. She nodded, pulling a notepad from her coat. "I'll need your statement. Start from when the child arrived at your building." He told her everything, finding Ivy in the lobby, the scarf, the call to 911, the drive through the snow. Lena's pen moved quickly, eyes flicking up only once when he described Darren Pike. "Known to us," she said under her breath. "Bar fights, petty theft, restraining order 5 years ago, always skirts the line." "Rosa said he has keys." Lena nodded grimly. "We'll post a temporary alert. Patrol units will check her building every few hours." "Will she need protective custody?" Adrian asked. "Not if she stabilizes and he's detained. We'll run warrants." At that moment, the curtain rustled and a nurse stepped out. "She's asking for her daughter," the nurse said quietly. Adrian followed her back. Rosa lay pale but awake now, one arm bandaged, IV drip clicking in a slow rhythm. Her eyes found him instantly. "You really brought me here?" "Yes." She swallowed, voice rough. "Ivy, where's my baby?" "She's safe," he said. "At my office, with people watching her." Tears slid down Rosa's temples. "She shouldn't have had to." "She did what you taught her," Adrian interrupted gently. "She ran when it got bad. You saved her long before tonight." She turned her face toward the wall, sobbing silently. He waited until her breathing steadied again. "You'll see her soon. But first you need rest." From the doorway, a calm, professional voice spoke. "Mrs. Martinez." Mara Patel entered, removing her gloves. She was around 40, her presence firm but kind. "I'm with Child Welfare Services. We'll make sure Ivy's safe until you're discharged." Rosa's face tightened. "She's not going to a shelter." "Ma'am, it's only temporary." "No," Rosa said weakly but with fire. "She's been through enough." Adrian stepped in before the standoff could harden. "Mara, what's the process for temporary placement with a verified guardian?" Mara studied him. "Are you volunteering?" "Yes, I've already spoken with the legal counsel." Her eyes flicked to Officer Hoyt, who gave a small nod. "He's credible." Mara pursed her lips. "We'd need ID, proof of residence, clean background, and emergency home check. Normally takes hours, but given the weather—" She hesitated. "If your lawyer can transmit verification and a virtual walkthrough, we can file under emergency caregiver clause." "I'll have it ready before you finish the paperwork," he said. Rosa's eyes filled again. "You'd do that? For a stranger?" Adrian shook his head. "For a child who asked for help, and for the mother she believes can get better." Rosa tried to reach for his hand but was too weak. "Thank you," she whispered. He stepped back so the nurses could work. Mara turned to him once more. If you're serious, Mr. Cole, meet me at the administrative desk in 15 minutes. I'll coordinate with your legal contact. I'll be there. As she left, Adrian pulled his phone from his pocket, typing a quick message to Ellen. Proceed. I'll handle in-person verification. Outside, snow streaked sideways under the streetlights, painting the hospital windows with endless white motion. Adrian stared at the storm, then at the faint reflection of himself, a man who had built systems to predict danger, now standing inside one that only instinct could solve. He whispered quietly, almost to the glass, "We don't turn away signals. We follow them until they stop blinking." The snow outside thickened to a white curtain as dawn bled into morning. From the hospital's administrative wing, the muffled sound of intercom calls and gurney wheels echoed like an anxious heartbeat. Adrian stood by the frosted window, coat unbuttoned, scarf still missing, the one now wrapped around Ivy's small shoulders miles away. Across the room, Mara Patel set her leather folder on the counter. "All right, Mr. Cole," she said evenly. "If you truly want to take emergency placement for Ivy Martinez, we'll do this by the book. No exceptions." "That's how I prefer it," Adrian replied. His voice was calm, but his eyes carried the weight of decisions made in seconds that would ripple for years. Mara nodded. "I'll need your ID, proof of residence, and at least one reference who can verify your living conditions. Since it's blizzard conditions, we'll rely on virtual inspection." He handed her his license and a slim black wallet card bearing his company credentials. "You'll find everything you need in the digital file I sent to your inbox. Scans, certifications, last background check, security clearance." She raised an eyebrow, scrolling through her tablet as the files arrived. "You run KindredNet?" "Yes. The AI company that supplies predictive safety data to the city." "That's right, though tonight, I'm just a guy who opened the wrong door at the right time." Mara's lips twitched in faint approval. "You'd be surprised how many people in your position don't say that." Before she could continue, Ellen Rourke's voice filled the room, crisp, confident, from the hospital's teleconference monitor. Her image appeared, blazer immaculate, expression composed. "Mara, I'm Ellen Rourke, General Counsel for KindredNet," she began. "We've prepared and notarized emergency caregiver authorization under Minnesota Statute 260C. D8. I've also uploaded Mr. Cole's security team's real-time footage verifying his home meets basic safety standards, locks, fire alarms, private sleeping space, emergency contacts. You'll find it compliant." Mara scrolled through the feed. On screen, a live walkthrough from Adrian's condo played, neutral-toned walls, clean counters, a cozy guest room with a small cot and soft light near the hall. The building's security director narrated softly, "Clear exits, safety rails, smoke detector active. Environment suitable for a minor." "This is thorough," Mara admitted. "Most guardians don't provide drone footage." Ellen allowed a small smile. "We tend to plan ahead." Adrian crossed his arms. "This isn't charity, Ellen. It's responsibility." "I know," Ellen said gently. "And I'm proud of you for remembering the difference." Mara looked between them. "All right, I'll submit for expedited approval. You'll need to sign the acknowledgement form. Officer Hoyt's on her way to co-sign as the verifying officer." Just then, Lena Hoyt entered, dusting snow from her uniform. She gave Adrian a quick nod. "Dispatch confirmed Darren Pike's been flagged. We've got an APB out. Patrol's covering Rosa's address every 2 hours." "Good," Adrian said. "No one tells Ivy until her mother's stable." Hoyt glanced at Mara. "Paperwork ready?" "Almost." Adrian leaned over the counter, reading as Mara filled out the final lines. His handwriting flowed neat and deliberate across the digital pad. "Adrian Cole, emergency caregiver, temporary placement, 1 minor child, Ivy Martinez." Mara pressed submit. There, she said. It's official. You can take her home once Officer Hoyt completes the release. Ellen's image flickered. I'll remain available if you need further legal cover. But Adrian, remember the optics. The media's already speculating about your involvement. Keep it private. I don't care about optics, he said quietly. I care about outcomes. Ellen gave the faintest nod before signing off. Mara gathered her folders, still studying him. You know, most people wouldn't have stayed this long. They'd donate, call a shelter, maybe post a hashtag, but sitting through every form, every procedure, means she doesn't disappear into the system, Adrian finished. She deserves more than rescue. She deserves consistency. Mara's gaze softened. That's exactly what child welfare is supposed to be. We just don't see many people willing to make it happen. He reached for his coat. Let's go bring her home. The drive back to Kindred Net was slower than before. Snow blanketed the freeway in thick silence. Plows crawled ahead like gray beasts, scraping paths through the chaos. Adrian sat in the passenger seat of Hoyt's SUV, glancing at the clock. She must be terrified by now, he said. She's tough, Hoyt replied. Kids like that, they read every silence in a room. They can tell when an adult means it. He looked out the window at the gray skyline fading behind curtains of snow. That's why I'm not promising anything I can't keep. When they arrived at the building, the security guard from earlier met them with relief on his face. She's in the infirmary still, sir. Been drawing since you left. Drawing? Adrian asked. The guard smiled faintly. Robots. Said she's fixing their signals. Adrian almost smiled, too. Of course she is. He found her sitting cross-legged on the infirmary cot, surrounded by papers and colored pencils someone had fetched from an office supply drawer. She looked up at him the moment he entered, eyes wide, uncertain, but shining with recognition. You found her? She asked. She's okay, he said gently. The doctors are helping her get stronger. She asked about you. Ivy's lip trembled, but she didn't cry. Can I see her? Not tonight, he said softly, but soon. You'll stay with me for a little while until she's ready to come home. Her hand tightened around the dented robot keychain. With you? He nodded. I already filled out the papers. It's official. Her small brow furrowed. You didn't have to. I know, Adrian said, but I wanted to. For the first time since dawn, something flickered across her face that wasn't fear. It was relief. She wrapped her arms around the scarf still looped at her neck and whispered, Then I guess the signal worked. He knelt so they were eye level again. Yeah, he said softly. It did. The snow outside thickened, muffling the city into silence, but inside, for the first time in a long while, someone had chosen to stay. By the time they reached Adrian's condo, the city had sunk into a muffled hush, only the hum of distant snowplows breaking the stillness. His building's lobby was warm, lined with soft amber lights that glowed against the storm outside. Security had been briefed, but when Ivy stepped through the revolving door, she gripped the scarf at her throat tighter, eyes darting around the sleek marble floor as if afraid she'd leave wet footprints where she didn't belong. It's okay, Adrian said quietly. The floor's tougher than it looks. She gave a quick glance up at him, half suspicion, half curiosity. You live here? I do, he said, guiding her toward the elevator. But tonight, it's your stop, too. The elevator doors slid open, reflecting their silhouettes. His tall, composed, dark-suited figure beside a small girl clutching a dented robot keychain. She watched the floor numbers tick up, as if each one carried her farther from a world she understood. When the doors opened, she whispered, It's so quiet. It'll get used to us, Adrian replied. The condo was large but understated. Clean lines, pale wood, glass walls blurred by snow. A faint hum of heat vents and the glow from the fireplace made it feel less like a magazine spread, more like somewhere that wanted to be lived in but had forgotten how. Ivy paused near the entryway rug, boots dripping. "Should I take them off?" He smiled faintly. "If you want, I'll find towels." She peeled them off carefully, setting them side by side. "Mom says shoes off means you're staying." "That's exactly right," Adrian said softly, returning with a folded towel. He motioned toward the kitchen where the faint smell of burnt something lingered. "You hungry? I can make eggs." "Kind of." "Kind of?" She tilted her head, intrigued. He cracked a smile. "You'll see." 10 minutes later, smoke curled faintly toward the vent hood as he frowned at the skillet. "You're supposed to flip them before they turn brown, right?" Ivy giggled, covering her mouth instantly, startled by the sound of her own laughter. Adrian looked up, feigning offense. "You doubt my culinary prowess." "You said a big word," she teased, "and your eggs look scared." He laughed, a low, warm sound that surprised even him. "Then we'll eat scared eggs together." They did, sitting at the kitchen island under the soft glow of pendant lights. Ivy chewed slowly, then glanced around the apartment again. "It's really clean," she said. "Too clean." "Hazard of living alone," he replied. "Don't you get lonely?" He hesitated, eyes tracing the faint reflection of snow on the glass. "Sometimes," he admitted. "But tonight, not so much." She nodded solemnly, as if cataloging the truth in that. After they cleared the plates, Adrian showed her the guest room. It was simple but warm. Fresh linens, a soft lamp near the corner, and a cot he'd asked security to bring in from storage. The light in the hallway spilled just enough glow through the open door. "You can see the hallway from here," he said. "Some kids like to leave the light on. Helps you feel safe." Ivy placed her robot keychain on the nightstand, studying it for a moment before looping it over the lamp's neck. "So the signal finds us," she explained. He smiled. "Then we'll leave it right there." She climbed under the blanket, clutching the scarf close to her chest. "You sure you don't mind me being here?" Adrian crouched beside the cot. "I don't mind. I'm glad you are." She yawned, eyes fluttering. "Mom says if someone listens when you're scared, that's how you know they care." "She's right," he said softly. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "You listened." He reached for the small reading lamp and dimmed it halfway. "Good night, Ivy." "Good night, Mr. Cole." He stayed in the doorway a long while after her breathing evened out. The condo felt different now, less sterile, more human. The kind of silence that used to press against him like glass was now filled with the faint sound of her breathing, the hum of the heater, the soft rattle of a snow-covered branch against the window pane. Adrian walked back to the kitchen, rinsed the dishes he'd burned, and caught sight of the scarf's empty hook near the door. The absence of it felt right, somehow, like a loan extended to the part of the world that still deserved warmth. He opened his laptop, typing a short message to Ellen. Ivy's settled, proceeding with child safety confirmation. No press disclosure. Her reply came within seconds. "Understood. Proud of you, Adrian." He leaned back, exhaling slowly. The city outside flickered under the snow, grids pulsing faint amber as KindredNet's sensors kept the lights alive, block by block. It wasn't heroism that moved him tonight. It was simple math. One child, one chance, one quiet promise to do better. Before heading to bed, he glanced down the hallway one last time. Ivy was asleep, the robot keychain glinting under the lamp. The tiny metal figure cast a faint shadow across the wall that looked, for a heartbeat, like two figures standing side by side, one tall, one small, under a single beam of light. Adrian whispered to the stillness, "We'll keep the signal strong." Then, for the first time in years, The house finally breathed with him. Morning came gray and unforgiving. The city was still under blizzard alert, streets sealed, schools shuttered, every rooftop glazed white. From the window of Adrian's penthouse, Minneapolis looked like a paused frame, frozen mid-motion. He stood at the counter, sleeves rolled up, phone pressed to his ear while the espresso machine hissed. "Yes, Ellen," he said quietly. "I'm aware of the coverage." Her voice came crisp and measured. "They're calling it a publicity stunt." Headline on Tech Daily reads, "AI CEO at assault scene. Hero, move, or PR play." Half the boards already texted me. Adrian rubbed the bridge of his nose. "Let them text." "I know your instinct is to ignore it," she said, "but perception matters. You left a high-security campus to intervene personally in a domestic call. That's not standard protocol." "No," he said, eyes flicking toward the hallway where Ivy's laughter suddenly rang. Soft, but real. "Neither is finding a child at your front door before sunrise." Ellen exhaled through the phone. "Just be ready for noise. I'll handle statements. Keep your answers simple. Community safety, emergency outreach, data validation, nothing personal. I trust you." "Good," she said. "Oh, and Rosa Martinez is awake. Social worker says she's asking for her daughter." He paused, letting the words settle. "How's her condition?" "Stable, but the hospital's recommending she remain for observation until tomorrow. She told staff that Darren Pike still has a set of keys. Officer Hoyt's coordinating lock changes at her old address." Adrian's tone sharpened. "Tell them to change her locks before noon. I'll cover the cost." Ellen hesitated. "You know you don't have to." "I do," he said simply. "And I want her file flagged for private assistance through our community fund. No name disclosure. Quietly." Ellen knew better than to argue when his voice took that calm, unshakable tone. Understood. He ended the call just as Ivy shuffled into the kitchen, rubbing her eyes, hair messy, still wrapped in his scarf. "Morning," she mumbled. "Morning," he replied, turning down the coffee machine noise. "You hungry again?" She nodded, climbing onto one of the tall stools. "Do we have pancakes?" "Unfortunately, no," he said with mock regret. "But we have cereal pretending to be pancakes." She giggled. "You're bad at cooking." "Confirmed," he said, sliding a bowl toward her. As she ate, she glanced toward the window. "Is Mom awake yet?" "She is," Adrian said softly. "She's getting better. You'll see her soon." Her spoon stopped midair. "Can I call her?" "Soon," he said again, voice careful. "She needs rest first. You'll get to talk to her. I promise." She looked down at her cereal, then back at him. "People don't always keep promises." "I know," he said, meeting her gaze. "That's why I only make the ones I mean." She studied him for a moment, as if testing the truth in his eyes, then nodded slowly and went back to eating. An hour later, while Ivy built a small fortress of cereal boxes on the counter, Adrian's tablet buzzed with internal notifications, board meeting messages, investor concerns, trending hashtags. His public image, usually spotless, was being dissected on news feeds. Kindred Net Rescue trended alongside Data or Drama. Ben's message popped up next. Uptime stable. Network handling storm load. Ignore the noise. Adrian typed back. Always do. Still, he opened the feed just long enough to glimpse the chatter. Photos of him in the snow beside an ambulance. Headlines speculating his motives. Some called it compassion. Others called it a calculated move. None of them knew the small girl now sitting in his kitchen, humming softly over a dented robot keychain. He shut the tablet with a sigh. When he turned, Ivy was carefully stacking empty mugs on their sides, like miniature towers. "What are you building?" she grinned. "A city, like yours but smaller, and no mean people." "That sounds like a place worth investing in," he said. Her smile faded slightly. Mom says bad people find you anyway. He crouched beside her, resting his elbows on the counter. Sometimes, but we can build places they can't hurt us in. Safe ones. She held up the robot. Like him? Exactly like him. She nodded, thoughtful. Then I'll call him Chief. Adrian chuckled. Chief it is. Just as they finished, his phone buzzed again. Officer Hoyt. Mr. Cole, she said, tone clipped. Wanted to give you a heads up. We recovered partial prints from Rosa's apartment. Darren Pike's confirmed suspect. He's not in custody yet, but we'll find him. Do I need to increase security here? Wouldn't hurt. He's volatile. He's seen your name in the news by now. Adrian's gaze flicked toward the hallway where Ivy had disappeared with her makeshift robot army. Already on it, he said quietly. Locks, access list, surveillance review. Good, Hoyt said. We'll keep you posted. And for what it's worth, what you did was the right call. After she hung up, he stood there for a moment. The hum of the condo's quiet systems blending with the wind against the windows. The world outside saw him as a CEO managing chaos. Inside, he was just a man trying to make sure one frightened child could sleep without fear. He turned toward the living room, where Ivy was now drawing on the back of an old printout from his office, her small fingers tracing shapes of houses under falling snow. What's that one? He asked. She looked up. It's Mom's new place. When she's better, we'll live somewhere no one yells. He nodded, throat tightening. That sounds perfect. For a moment, she looked at him with quiet certainty. You're helping, right? Like your job says? He smiled faintly. KindredNet means family connected, he said. So yes, Ivy, I'm helping my family. She grinned. Then Chief's gonna protect us both. Outside, the storm shifted, wind curling around the glass like a sigh. And Adrian, staring at the child who'd found his building by instinct, felt the strange weight of peace, a fragile, borrowed calm, before the next wave he didn't yet see coming. By nightfall, the storm had calmed, but the world outside Adrian's windows still looked ghost-like. Streets erased, sky and ground blending into one colorless stretch. The silence felt deceptive, too still, as if the snow were holding its breath. He sat at the kitchen island, reviewing an internal briefing from KindredNet. It should have been routine, server uptime, grid stabilization, predictive mapping, but his mind drifted. Every sound made him glance toward the hallway where Ivy's soft humming came from. She was seated on the rug. Cardboard boxes and scissors spread out before her, building what she called Signal City. Mr. Cole, she called, do you have more tape? He stood, searching a drawer, and found a half-used roll of packing tape. Will this work? She nodded, accepting it with both hands. Chief says we need to reinforce the towers before bedtime. Ah, he said, smiling faintly. And who's Chief protecting tonight? She looked up with all the seriousness a child could hold. Us, until Mom wakes up. He nodded slowly. Then we'd better make sure he has strong walls. As she bent back over her project, he returned to his phone. 2 missed calls from Ellen, 1 from Officer Hoyt. He was about to return them when a new text came through. Unknown number. The image hit first. A grainy, off-angle photo taken from across the river. It showed KindredNet's glass lobby, nightlit by security lamps, and, through the window, a small figure in a scarf, clutching something shiny. Then the caption appeared below. She's not yours. The words turned the air heavier, colder. Adrian stared at the screen, jaw tightening, thumb hovering over the reply field before he stopped himself. He didn't answer. He forwarded the message straight to Officer Hoyt, tagging it urgent. Her response came almost instantly. Received. Don't engage. Lock building. I'm tracing the number now. He set the phone down carefully, the weight of it disproportionate to its size. For a moment, he just listened. The heater's steady hum, Ivy's faint paper rustle, the snow shifting outside. He walked to the hallway, voice even. "Hey, Ivy. How's Signal City coming along?" She turned, holding up a tiny cardboard tower with pride. "Almost done, but Chief's missing a window." "Maybe I can help him finish," he said gently. She tilted her head, sensing something in his tone. "Are you okay?" He forced a small, reassuring smile. "I'm fine. Just need to fix something, too." He crouched beside her, steadying his voice. "Do you remember what I said about this building being safe?" "Uh-huh." "Well, tonight we're making it safer. Just extra lights and locks like fortifying your city." She brightened a little. "Chief likes that." "Good," Adrian said, standing. Within minutes, he was on the building's security call, issuing quiet, precise instructions. "Whitelist only 3 elevators. Mine, lobby staff, and medical floor. No external access without authorization. Send camera footage to Ellen's secure folder." "Understood, sir," came the reply. "Do you want a visible presence?" "No," he said. "No show of force, just vigilance, calm and invisible." After the call, he moved through the condo with deliberate efficiency. Every motion, checking door sensors, confirming window latches, resetting the alarm system, had the quiet rhythm of a man used to solving problems without noise. When he returned to the living room, Ivy had constructed a small cardboard fort around her robot keychain. She looked up at him with a grin. "Chief says we're ready for anything." He knelt beside her, lowering his voice. "Then, Chief is a good leader." She handed him a marker. "You can draw the control center." He did, simple lines, 2 stick figures side by side under a bright square of light. She looked at it, then smiled shyly. "That's you and me." "Yeah," he said softly. "It is." Later that evening, after Ivy was tucked in, Adrian sat on the edge of the sofa, phone dimmed in his palm. He read the text again, those 3 words carved into his mind. "She's not yours." He knew the threat wasn't about custody or law. It was a warning. A man like Darren Pike didn't just lash out. He needed to remind the world he existed. The elevator pinged softly down the hall. His private lift, restricted access. He rose instantly, checking the camera feed. It was only the night security manager delivering an updated keycard for the lockdown protocol. Adrian signed for it, thanked him, and watched the man leave, snowflakes swirling in behind him as the door sealed. He glanced toward the guest room. Ivy's door was half open, the lamplight spilling onto the floor. She slept curled up, scarf wrapped high under her chin, robot perched beside her like a guard. Adrian stepped closer, keeping his voice to a whisper. "You're safe here," he murmured. He stood there for a long time, the light painting a faint glow on his sleeve. The city below, flickering in patterns his own company's sensors were managing, minute by minute. He had built systems that could read traffic flows, power surges, even emotional stress through data. But no algorithm could calculate what it meant to feel responsible for someone who trusted you completely. As he turned off the hallway light, his phone buzzed one last time. A message from Officer Hoyt. "Trace confirmed. Burner phone. But the signal pinged from near your block. Stay alert. We'll patrol overnight." Adrian typed back. "Understood. Building secured." He slipped the phone into his pocket, checked the lock once more, then looked at the reflection in the dark window. His own face, faintly overlaid with the snow and the blurred lights of the sleeping city. Behind him, from the guest room, Ivy mumbled something in her sleep. He caught one word through the quiet. Home. He stayed still for a moment, eyes softening, then whispered to the reflection. "No one takes that from her again. And with that vow, he turned back toward the hall, the snow outside moving again. Slow, steady, relentless, like time pushing forward, carrying them both toward whatever waited in the storm's next silence. The storm returned just after midnight, as if the city hadn't yet decided whether to rest or rage. Snow swept in long, diagonal sheets, battering the windows of the high-rise with a slow, ghostly persistence. Down on the streetlights blurred into halos. Adrian sat in the glow of his laptop, reviewing one last report. Ivy had finally fallen asleep in the guest room, her scarf tangled near her chin, the dented robot standing sentinel beside her pillow. Every so often, he glanced toward the hallway to make sure she was still there, breathing, warm, safe. A message from Ellen flashed across his screen. Ellen. Crisis team wants your statement prepped in case the story expands. You need rest, Adrian. Don't try to solve everything in one night. He typed back, not everything, just this one thing. Then another ping, this one from Officer Hoyt. Hoyt. Still no sign of Pike. Stay vigilant. We're rotating a cruiser past your block every 45 minutes. Stay vigilant. He read the words twice, then minimized the chat. The wind groaned outside like the echo of a warning. Sometime around 2. A soft thud came from the service corridor. It was faint, barely audible over the wind, but Adrian's instincts sharpened instantly. He muted the television, listening. Another sound followed, metal against metal, then a pause, then a second scrape. He rose silently, slipped on his jacket, and moved toward the foyer. On the intercom, he pressed a button to open the building's camera grid. A grainy feed from the service level flickered to life. 2 figures, both men. One shorter, nervous, the other tall, shoulders hunched against the cold, moving with the determined gait of someone who knew the place. One of them matched the outline he'd seen in Rosa's apartment photo. The man Ivy had called him. Darren Pike. Adrian's pulse stayed steady even as his muscles tensed. He tapped his earpiece, connecting directly to security. This is Cole. 2 unauthorized men in the service corridor. Lock the interior door and seal the lift access immediately. No confrontation. Understood, sir. Visual confirmation from my end. We're stalling the elevator right now. Call Officer Hoyt's unit. She's already tracking him. Yes, sir. Adrian walked quietly to the hallway outside Ivy's room, listening. She stirred in her sleep, but didn't wake. He reached over to dim the lamp, leaving just enough light for comfort. He whispered, "You're okay," as if the words themselves were part of the alarm system. Then he turned back toward the corridor. On the other side of the building's reinforced door, Darren was pounding now, muttering curses. The security feed picked up his voice, angry, slurred from cold. "I know she's here. I saw her picture. You rich people think you can take what's mine?" Adrian pressed the intercom mic, voice firm, low, controlled. "You need to leave this property, now." Silence, then a hard laugh. "Who the hell are you to tell me that?" "Someone who isn't afraid to keep records," Adrian said. "You think you can hide her behind your fancy glass? She's my family." "You forfeited that right when you hit her," Adrian said evenly. "The police are already on their way." For a few seconds there was only wind and static. Then a new sound, metal scraping the lock plate. He watched through the camera as Darren tried the handle, then slammed his shoulder against the door. The second man looked scared now, backing away. "Man, this is stupid." "Shut up," Darren shouted. "He's bluffing." Inside, Adrian muted the audio feed and hit record. The small light beside the monitor blinked red, logging everything. He spoke calmly, knowing the mic would pick it up. "This building has multiple sensors. You're being filmed and recorded. Walk away now before this becomes the worst decision of your life." Outside, the pounding stopped. For a few seconds, only the storm filled the silence. Then, faintly, he heard the sound of boots retreating down the corridor, fast, stumbling, desperate. He exhaled slowly. The security channel buzzed to life again. "Sir, MPD's here. They've detained 2 individuals in the vestibule. One matches Pike's description." "Keep the footage," Adrian said. "Officer Hoyt will need it." "Yes, sir. You want me to come up?" "No need," he said. "Everything's fine up here." He walked back toward Ivy's room, pulse still elevated but steady. She was sitting up now, rubbing her eyes. "What happened?" she whispered. "Just the wind," he said gently. "Go back to sleep." She blinked at him, uncertain. "Was it loud?" He nodded, sitting on the edge of her cot. "A little, but everything's okay now." Her hand reached for the scarf on the pillow. "Chief says storms try to scare you so you forget to listen." Adrian smiled faintly. "Then, Chief is right again." She lay back down, clutching the robot to her chest. Within minutes, her breathing evened out. He sat there until dawn began bleeding pale blue through the curtains, his phone buzzing once more, this time with a message from Hoyt. "2 in custody. Audio confirms threat. You handled it perfectly. No charges against you. Get some rest." He typed back, "Thanks. Rest can wait." He looked around the room, the soft lamp glow, the cardboard city on the floor, the scarf folded near her chin, and realized that rest wasn't the point anymore. This was what it meant to keep someone safe, not by power or wealth, but by presence. Outside, the storm thinned into calm again. Inside, the signal held strong. And somewhere between the hum of heat vents and the heartbeat of the quiet house, Adrian realized something unexpected. He wasn't protecting her alone anymore. She was protecting something in him. 2. Morning sunlight spilled weak and golden through the frost-etched windows, softening the sharp edges left by the night. The storm had passed. For the first time in days, the city below looked alive again. Plows carving paths, buses crawling through the thaw. The air inside Adrian's condo felt changed, lighter somehow, as if the silence had finally exhaled. He brewed coffee while Ivy sat cross-legged on the rug, rearranging the cardboard towers she'd built. Her scarf trailed behind her like a flag. Chief, the dented robot, stood proudly on top of the tallest one. "You think he likes pancakes?" she asked. "I think Chief likes whatever his engineer likes," Adrian said, pouring milk into her cereal bowl. She grinned. "Then he likes everything." He smiled back. But his thoughts were elsewhere, on the phone call he'd just taken from Officer Hoyt. Darren Pike was in custody. Trespassing, violation of a prior protective order, attempted break-in. The man wouldn't be getting out soon. Adrian had simply said, "Good," before hanging up. No triumph, just quiet relief. The days that followed moved differently. Routine became their anchor. Ivy started virtual sessions with a school counselor every morning at 10. The counselor, an older woman named Mrs. Vickers, had a kind voice and an endless supply of stickers, which Ivy collected on the back of her sketchbook. After each session, Adrian would take a break from KindredNet's board calls and sit with her at the kitchen island. He helped with homework sometimes, though she insisted he didn't know fourth-grade math rules. "You can make robots, but you can't divide fractions?" she teased. "Apparently not to regulation," he said dryly, earning another laugh. Their small routines, breakfast, lessons, short walks in the building's atrium, stitched warmth into the sterile rhythm of his days. The condo, once all quiet lines and polished stone, now carried the echo of crayon scratching, spoons clinking, the small hum of someone humming off-key. He hadn't realized how much he'd missed those sounds until now. On the third evening after the incident, his phone rang. Hennepin Healthcare. Rosa. He answered instantly. "Rosa, how are you feeling?" Her voice was thin but steady. "They're saying I can go home soon. Well, not home. Somewhere safe. They found me a place downtown." "That's good news," he said and meant it. "Ivy, is she okay?" "She's more than okay," he said softly. "She's building cities and teaching me math." Rosa's breath trembled through the line. "I don't know how to thank you." "You don't need to." "I do," she insisted. "I thought when I ran, no one would help. But you did." He looked toward the hallway where Ivy was coloring on the floor, tongue caught between her teeth in concentration. "She's the one who reached out," he said. "I just listened." Rosa was quiet a moment, then whispered, "Tell her I love her, and that I'm getting stronger." "I will." Later that night, he told Ivy that her mom had called. The girl's eyes widened. "She's okay. She's healing," he said. "You'll see her soon." Ivy nodded slowly. "Then we have to finish Chief's base before she comes home." "His base?" "Yeah," she said, serious now, "so he can protect everyone." They sat together on the floor, cutting small cardboard panels, taping pieces into shape. Her fingers were quick and certain, his clumsier but patient. When they finished, she scribbled something across the front in bold crayon letters. "Safe zone." He smiled, touched the word gently, and said, "I think your mom will like that." A few days later, Rosa was discharged to a transitional apartment. Officer Hoyt personally supervised the move, and Mara Patel sent updates every step of the way. Adrian stood by his office window, reading the message thread, while Ivy drew another picture, this one of her mother waving from a window, Chief standing guard outside. When he looked down, she said without turning, "Do robots ever sleep?" "Sometimes they power down," he said, "but they still listen for signals." "So they never really stop protecting?" He shook his head. "No, not the good ones." She smiled faintly, eyes on the paper. "Then you're a robot, too." He laughed, but something inside him warmed at the words. That evening, as snow melted in thin silver lines down the glass, Adrian read aloud from Matilda. Ivy corrected his voices when he got Miss Trunchbull wrong, and when he tried to skip a page, she caught him instantly. By the end, her head rested against his arm, eyes heavy. "You sound like my mom when she read this," she mumbled. "I'll take that as high praise," he said softly. Her voice drifted, half asleep. "Do robots get lonely?" He looked at her, small and safe under the lamp's glow. "Maybe, until someone teaches them how not to be." When she finally dozed off, he closed the book carefully, looked out over the darkened city, and whispered what he hadn't said aloud in years. "Thank you for finding me, kid." The wind outside had quieted to a low hum. Inside, warmth replaced the noise, steady, earned, and alive. The snow had melted into a dull gray slush by the time the court date arrived. Minneapolis looked washed out and tired, as if the city itself had lived through too many storms. Adrian guided Ivy up the courthouse steps, her hand small and certain in his. The dented robot keychain dangled from her backpack, clicking softly against the zipper with each step. Inside, the air was thick with murmurs, the shuffle of papers, the low hum of vending machines in the hallway. It wasn't dramatic, no oak-paneled movie courtroom, no flashing cameras, just the ordinary fluorescent-lit space where people's lives quietly changed forever. Ellen Rourke met them outside the family courtroom, her usual steel composure softened by the sight of Ivy. "You ready, kiddo?" she asked with a faint smile. Ivy nodded. "Does this mean I get to tell them about Chief?" Ellen chuckled. "Maybe not today, but you can hold him if you want." Ivy clutched the keychain tighter. "He's lucky." Ellen turned to Adrian. Everything's in order. We're not fighting anyone. We're just establishing continuity. You and Rosa both signed the affidavits. The judge will likely approve the protective order and the transition plan." "Good," Adrian said. "That's all that matters." When the door opened, they stepped into a small room that smelled faintly of coffee and floor wax. The judge, a calm woman in her 60s, adjusted her glasses and gave a polite nod. Mr. Cole, Miss Rourke, Ms. Patel, Mrs. Martinez. Rosa was there, seated across the table, a soft bandage still visible near her hairline. She looked healthier, still pale, but alive in a way that hadn't been possible weeks before. When her eyes found Ivy's, they filled instantly with tears. "Mama," Ivy whispered, half rising before Adrian's gentle hand on her shoulder reminded her to wait. "It's okay," Rosa said softly. "I see you." The judge began, voice measured. "We're here to formalize the emergency care arrangement under Statute 260C 178 and review long-term custody. I've read the reports. It's clear this child has been through considerable trauma, and both parties have acted with integrity." Ellen stood. "Your Honor, KindredNet's records confirm full compliance with emergency caregiver provisions. Mr. Cole facilitated safe shelter and medical intervention without media exploitation or policy violations. Officer Hoyt's report verifies that his actions directly prevented further harm to both child and parent." The judge turned to Mara Patel. "Ms. Patel, your assessment?" Mara's tone was steady, professional, but her eyes warmed as she spoke. "Mrs. Martinez has demonstrated strong commitment to recovery and parenting stability. Mr. Cole provided care consistent with statutory and ethical expectations. I recommend granting Rosa Martinez primary custody upon medical clearance, with Mr. Sui Cole retaining temporary secondary caregiving authority during her reintegration period." The judge nodded. "Thank you. Officer Hoyt's written statement corroborates the incident timeline. I see no objection." Then the judge turned her gaze toward Adrian. "Mr. Cole, you're not required to testify, but if you wish to make a statement, you may." Adrian stood, buttoned his jacket, and spoke without notes. His voice was low but carried in the quiet room. "A child asked for help," he began. "She walked through a blizzard to find a signal she believed would answer. We didn't rescue her. She rescued our attention. I only did what I hope anyone would do: listen, act, and stay." He paused, meeting Rosa's gaze. "Ivy belongs with her mother. I'm grateful I could help keep her safe until they could be together again. And if I'm needed to keep that safety going, I'll keep answering." The judge leaned back slightly, a small smile forming. "Concise and genuine. I wish more testimony sounded like that." Rosa's voice trembled when she spoke next. "Your Honor, I just want to say thank you. To him, to everyone. I made mistakes, but I never stopped trying to be a good mother. And when I couldn't protect Ivy, he did. I'll never forget that." The judge nodded slowly, then looked to Ivy. "Young lady, do you have anything you want to say?" Ivy blinked, surprised. She looked at her mom, then at Adrian, then held up her robot keychain. "Chief says we should stay connected," she said solemnly, "because signals mean family." The judge chuckled softly. "Then Chief sounds very wise." She signed the final documents with a smooth, practiced motion. Protective order is granted. Rosa Martinez retains primary custody. Adrian Cole will continue as temporary caregiver for coordination of safety, educational, and emotional support. Court adjourned. The gavel's soft tap echoed like a heartbeat. Outside the courtroom, Rosa knelt to hug Ivy tight, breathing her in like sunlight after too long underground. Ivy clung to her, eyes squeezed shut. "I told you Chief would work," she said through tears. Rosa laughed shakily. You were right, mi vida. Adrian stood a few feet away, giving them space, the faintest smile at the corners of his mouth. When Rosa finally looked up at him, her eyes were full. You gave us time. That's the one thing nobody ever gives. You used it well, he said. That's all I hoped for. Rosa reached into her pocket and pulled out something small, the hospital wristband she'd worn. The ink was faded now, the edges curled. I thought maybe Ivy should keep this, she said, but she wants you to have it for now. He took it carefully, turning it over in his palm. Then I'll keep it safe until she wants it back. Promise? He nodded. Promise. As Rosa and Ivy walked out hand in hand, Adrian stayed behind for a moment, watching the snow outside begin to fall again. Not heavy, not dangerous this time, just enough to make the world quiet. Ellen joined him, tucking her folder under her arm. You did good, she said softly. He smiled faintly. No capes, just facts. She smirked. The best kind of hero. He shook his head, eyes following the mother and daughter as they stepped into the winter light. Not a hero, he murmured. Just someone who finally learned to listen. A week later, the snow turned to rain. A soft, steady drizzle that washed the salt from the sidewalks and made the city smell like iron and thaw. For the first time since the storm, the streets of Minneapolis looked alive again. Buses hissed, shop signs flickered, and kids in bright coats splashed through puddles that reflected the gray-gold sky. Adrian watched it all from the back seat of a company car as they drove toward a modest brick building near the river. Rosa's new apartment complex. Confidential address, city-backed lease, quietly funded through a victim's stabilization grant Kindred Net had launched that very morning. He'd written the seed check himself, but not in his own name. It appeared only as Community Signal Trust. He didn't need credit, he needed closure. When he arrived, Rosa was waiting at the door. She looked stronger, still fragile around the eyes, but standing tall. The bruise along her temple had faded to a shadow. She smiled as he approached, the kind of smile that said, "Thank you," without words. "You found the place," she said. "I try to be predictable," he replied lightly. Inside, the apartment smelled of new paint and coffee. Modest, 2 bedrooms, a small kitchen with a view of the Riverwalk. Ivy's drawings already covered one wall. Robots, snowstorms, and a stick figure in a blue scarf standing beside a smaller one with wild hair. The caption read, in bright marker, "The signal worked." Rosa followed his gaze. "She did that the first night we moved in. She has your determination," he said. "She has your steadiness." They both smiled, the quiet kind that happens when words run out. The sound of tiny sneakers interrupted them. Ivy barreled out from the hallway, ponytail bouncing, Chief clutched tight in one hand. "Mr. Cole," she squealed. He crouched just in time to catch her hug. "Careful, Chief might lose an antenna." "He's tougher than he looks," she said, grinning. "I've heard that about his engineer," he said. Rosa leaned against the doorway, watching them. "She hasn't stopped talking about you. Every time the heater makes noise, she says, 'That's just Mr. Cole checking the signal.'" Adrian laughed softly. "Then I guess my reputation's safe." He glanced around, noting the framed photo on the counter, Rosa and Ivy at the hospital, smiling weakly but together. Next to it, taped neatly with blue painter's tape, was the hospital wristband. He froze for a moment. Rosa followed his eyes. "She said it doesn't belong in a drawer. She wanted it where people can see it." He smiled, throat tightening. "On the fridge?" "Yeah," Rosa said. "She said it means we kept our promise." Adrian exhaled, feeling something unclench in his chest. Then that's where it should stay. They sat together for coffee while Ivy built a cardboard command tower for Chief on the living room floor. The conversation drifted. Weather, her therapy sessions, Rosa's new job at a community kitchen. Every word between them carried the easy rhythm of people who'd shared fear and made it through. "I don't know how to repay you," Rosa said finally. "I keep trying to think of something that makes sense." "You already did," Adrian replied. "You healed." She looked down at her mug. "Do you ever regret it? Getting involved?" He shook his head slowly. "I regret how long it took me to remember why I built the company in the first place. It wasn't for investors or markets. It was for moments like this. Proof that data can protect people if we stay human enough to answer it." Rosa smiled softly. "You sound like someone who finally believes his own mission statement." "Maybe I do." They shared a quiet laugh, the kind that comes after the worst is behind you. Ivy crawled onto the couch between them, waving her latest drawing. "Look, Chief has a headquarters now." Adrian admired it. Very impressive engineering. "Does he have a communications center?" She pointed to a tiny square at the bottom corner. "That's the fridge. It's where we keep promises." He looked at Rosa, and they both couldn't help but smile. Later, when it was time for him to leave, Ivy walked him to the door. She tugged gently at his sleeve. "You'll still visit, right?" "Of course," he said. "I have to make sure Chief's signal stays strong." "Mom says we might visit your office, too," she added shyly. "She wants to see where the lights never go out." "She's always welcome," he said. "You both are." She hugged him again, tighter this time as if sealing a circuit that shouldn't break. "Goodbye, Mr. Cole." He smiled down at her. "See you soon, Ivy." As he stepped into the hall, Rosa followed him to the doorway. "You really mean to keep checking in?" "I wouldn't know how to stop," he said simply. "Then maybe you don't have to," she replied. For a moment, neither moved. Then he nodded, a quiet promise passing between them. Unspoken, steady, real. When Adrian returned home, the condo felt different. Still quiet, but not empty. On his fridge, under a magnet shaped like a snowflake, he taped the copy of Rosa's hospital wristband she'd given him that morning. It hung there beside a printout of Ivy's drawing, 2 figures under a beam of light, a small robot between them. He stood there for a while, coffee cooling in his hand, before whispering, "The signal's still strong." Outside, evening light reflected off melting snow, scattering gold across the river. The city breathed again, and somewhere across town, a child slept with a robot on her nightstand and a mother who could finally rest. For the first time in years, Adrian felt something close to peace. By early March, the ice along the river cracked into ribbons of silver. Minneapolis thawed in slow motion. Street corners sprouting puddles, branches dripping sunlight, the air laced with the faint scent of wet pine and city dust. For most people, winter was finally over. For Adrian, it had only changed shape. He sat in the conference hall of KindredNet headquarters, facing a dozen quiet screens filled with journalists, policy advisors, and partners. The topic wasn't markets or product launches. It was something far simpler and far harder. "Signal safe," he said, tapping the screen that displayed the new program's logo, a small, glowing icon shaped like a heartbeat inside a snowflake. "This will be an optional upgrade to KindredNet's safety AI. It doesn't record conversations. It doesn't flag identities. It listens for patterns of harm, anonymous noise risk signatures, power anomalies, and interruption spikes that may signal domestic distress. Then, instead of law enforcement, it routes those signals directly to trained advocates who can respond within minutes. Privacy stays sacred. Help arrives faster. No one falls through the cracks." The board members nodded slowly, some intrigued, some cautious. Ellen's voice came over the speaker. "Independent ethics review every quarter?" "Mandatory," Adrian said. and open-source transparency on the routing algorithm. If we're going to scale care, we do it right." The meeting ended without applause, just quiet understanding. When it was done, he stood by the window, staring at the skyline streaked with light. Below, the city hummed in the steady rhythm he'd come to love. Alive, imperfect, human. That evening, he stopped by Rosa's apartment. No business suit, no entourage, just jeans, a navy sweater, and a takeout bag that smelled faintly of ginger and rice. Rosa opened the door before he could knock twice. Her smile was easier now, her movements unguarded. "You read my mind," she said. "We were just finishing homework and threatening to burn dinner." "I thought I'd preempt disaster," he said with a grin. From the kitchen, Ivy's voice called, "Mr. Cole, Chief says you're late." Adrian laughed. "Chief needs to reset his clock." Rosa chuckled softly as she took his coat. "You're part of her vocabulary now, you know. Everything's either Chief or Mr. Cole, approved." He smiled, a little embarrassed. "I'll try not to set bad precedents." "You already set one," she said quietly. "The kind that sticks." After dinner, Ivy proudly unveiled her latest creation. A tiny 3D printed shell for Chief, polished silver with a small inscription carved into the back. "Signal found." Adrian turned it over in his hand, awe softening his features. "You made this?" "I designed it in the library lab," Ivy said. "They said it's for creative expression, but I told them it's for protection." Rosa watched, her hand resting lightly on her daughter's shoulder. "She's got your focus." He shook his head. "She's got your strength." For a long moment, the three of them stood there, the soft hum of the heater filling the space between their heartbeats. The world outside might still be unpredictable. Laws, systems, algorithms. But this little apartment, this small circle, felt certain. Rosa broke the silence first. "So, SignalSafe goes live next week?" "It does," he said. "It's not a solution, but it's a start. Thousands of small signals waiting to be heard. You really believe it'll help?" "I do," he said, "because it started with one that did." Rosa smiled faintly. "Then, maybe everything begins that way." He looked at Ivy, who was now busy attaching Chief's new casing to the robot's dented frame. "One signal," he said softly, "and someone willing to answer." Later, as he was leaving, Ivy ran to the door, holding up a folded piece of paper. "Wait, I made you a version of Chief's blueprint, so you don't forget him." He crouched, taking it carefully. The drawing showed a robot standing under a snowstorm, one hand extended, a heart pulsing in the center of its chest. Beneath it, in crooked handwriting, "Kindred means we keep each other warm." He swallowed hard, voice rough when he finally spoke. "That's perfect, Ivy." "Promise you'll keep it?" she asked. "I promise." Rosa stood behind her, arms folded, eyes soft. "We'll see you soon." He nodded. "Anytime. You still have my scarf, remember?" She smiled. "It's hanging by the door. We don't plan to give it back." "Good," he said. "That means you're keeping the signal alive." Back at his condo, he taped Ivy's blueprint beside the wristband on the fridge. Two small symbols, one from a night of fear, the other from everything that came after. The city lights shimmered against the windows, bright enough to blur the snow's reflection into gold. He turned off the kitchen light, letting the glow from outside fill the room. For a long moment, he just stood there, watching the faint pulse of the skyline, the rhythm of a city learning, slowly, how to care. Then he whispered to the quiet, "We're still listening." And for the first time, he didn't feel alone when he said it.